Hello and welcome to this special show. We've got Mr. Deepak Parekh right here to talk to us about the state of the economy, and of course the Sensex crossing 20,000 certainly has been a big move for the Indian economy coming back into shape after over 2.5 years. What does this signify and what does this tell us about funds versus fundamentals? That's the discussion we're going to have with him right here. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. What could be the drivers? What drivers would you attribute this entire rally to? And is there really a true story on the fundamental side?
Well, there is some truth to it. First, there is ample liquidity globally. Second is that India is one of the fastest growing nations in the world. Markets going at this level, foreign inflows have increased significantly in the last 3 months. It's validation that our economic prescription is right. There is huge amount of optimism for the future. But markets at these levels also places huge responsibility on us to perform, to see that the future is bright.
Right.
So there is a responsibility, there is an obligation on all of us also, that because expectations are very high, that the growth in India will continue of the corporate sector.
Is there a breakup then between consumption versus infrastructure? What is the story that people are buying into today? Some would certainly say overvalued, as you were reflecting in your answer there, but truly speaking, what is the driver?
No, I see a lot of progress in infrastructure. Honestly, today we are in a far better situation than we were 2 years ago. If you analyze the different sectors within the infrastructure area, there's, you see the Minister for Surface Transport, Kamal Nath, is putting massive emphasis on road construction. There are a large number of foreign companies now interested in taking contracts.
Right.
He has tweaked the procedures and he has improved the procedures, and the massive contracts being given for road construction. Similarly, I see in IDFC, I see the amount of loan applications we are getting from the energy sector, power sector. Practically every large industrial group wants to get into the power sector. And the huge power shortages which we experience in India, I think it's something of in the next 3-4 years, the amount of megawatts that are going to be added in India is much, much more than we ever anticipated.
You're talking about infrastructure, something that you're really familiar with. That's got one big challenge, which is that of execution. And all the time, whenever somebody looks at that story, the first question is, yes, you can arrange the funds, but where is the execution?
Execution is a major challenge. But once you get the approvals and you start construction, the challenges tend to disappear. It is the approval process to start any infrastructure projects, whether it's the land acquisition, the environment approval, the tying the bits and pieces for supply of raw materials or supply of coal or supply of gas.
Right.
These are issues in the power sector. But once you have your financial closure is the least of the problems. Yeah. Because again, the Indian banking system has reasonable confidence. And I don't see any viable projects not getting funded because of shortage of funds in India. Right. Whether it's the power sector or even in fact the telecom or the roads or whatever.
What kind of loans are we expected to see jump in that sector? You're saying money is not quite an issue there, right?
No, I think different institutions have different growth numbers. But if you see Power Finance Corporation, if you see REC, if you see IDFC, if you see State Bank, if you see ICICI Bank, these are some of the banks and institutions that are funding infrastructure.
Right.
And their sanctions sanctions have grown up almost 50-60% or more, while disbursements are slower, 20-30%. But this is again the implementation issue, that once the implementation starts, once the construction of a plant or a road begins, more than half the battle is won. Then doing the construction is less cumbersome, less difficult, because you have all approvals in place.
So if 2010 was to be the decade of infrastructure, what kind of investments are we talking about? What kind of numbers are worth chasing?
No, this will be a decade of infrastructure. You see in the next planning, in the next plan, we are talking of what, $1 trillion or something, $20 billion a year for infrastructure. I think it's a large number, but we need to have aspirations to be able to get to that level. Maybe we will run out of some funding, because there is the Planning Commission themselves have shown that there is a fair amount of gap in this $1 trillion or what is required for the next next 5 years. So we have to find out ways and means how to bridge the gap if there are shortages. But this is if every project is on schedule and also I'm not really concerned about the availability of funds even for the next 5-year plan. No, I think mining issue, we've left it far too long. It's become far more complex today because states that have mineral resources are supposed to be wealthy states, but they're not wealthy states. They are the poorer states. They are the weaker states. They are the states where economic development has not happened. And I think even the royalties that we pay to these states for using the mineral resources is something which was decided independence time. And we need to relook at the mining policy. I don't know whether, I think we have neglected this policy too long. It's a company takeover. Company takeover happens all the time, all over the world. I think it's one existing promoter wanting to exit and a new promoter wanting to enter. I think we are making too much of it. No, I think land, we have a very old Land Acquisition Act of 1894 or something like that. There is an amendment to Land Acquisition Act bill. There's a bill pending in Parliament, which we understand is going to be discussed and hopefully passed in the coming sessions, which will make acquisition of land easier, but which recognizes that everyone has to pay market-related prices to acquire land.